Welcome to the Wenatchee Valley Museum and Cultural Center's Social Justice Community Forum series. I'm Ashley Sinner, the museum's Outreach and Public Relations Specialist. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge that the Wenatchee Valley Museum and Cultural Center is located on the traditional homelands of the Pasquosa Wenatchee. We acknowledge the traditional lands and offer respect and gratitude to the Pasquosa and to the diverse indigenous peoples that reside in North Central Washington today. It is the mission of the museum to gather, engage, and educate the community on the history, culture, and diversity of our region. The museum is a place where we can meet with our neighbors, learn about issues important to our community and our world, and discuss our thoughts and opinions. We are eager to serve in this role virtually by gathering in forums like this to inspire engagement and cultivate conversation. Our goal today is to engage in a thoughtful, inclusive, and open-minded discussion about LGBTQIA2S+ rights in the Wenatchee Valley and how we as a community can work together to build an atmosphere of inclusion. It is my privilege to introduce the panel joining me today. We have Matthew Pippin, the Exhibits and Facilities Assistant for the Wenatchee Valley Museum and Cultural Center. We have Donnie Guerrero, Senior Specialist, Community Engagement, Molina Healthcare of Washington. Emily Spradling, Social Service Coordinator and Activities Assistant at Colonial Vista. Lincoln Neer, President of Wenatchee Pride. Luz Estrada Gonzalez. Dusty Mahoney, Program Manager, YWCA, North Central Washington. Alexa Barcena, Dr. Alexa Barcena, Behavioral Medicine Postdoctoral Fellow with Columbia Valley Community Health, and Ashley Olson, Management Analyst with the Employment Security Department. Thanks to sponsorships from Molina Healthcare, sorry about that, Donnie, and Coordinated Care of Washington, live Spanish translation is provided today by William Cartunega. Thank you for jumping in last minute for us. We really appreciate it. If you are logged into Zoom, you have the option of listening to the translated audio channel. You can do this by clicking on the icon of the world and selecting the Spanish option. Before we begin, I want to remind our panelists to speak a little bit slower than your normal rate to help out our translator. If you're joining us live and have questions for the panel, please submit them through the Zoom Q&As or chat located at the bottom of the screen. Or if you are on a mobile device, these are available at the top of the screen. If you're on Facebook Live, please submit your questions in the comments. Our staff will do our best to address as many of these questions as we're able to. The LGBTQIA2S+ community recognizes June as the official Pride Month. The month of June is the start of Pride events all across the globe, extending over several months to folks from all walks of life. Pride is an annual celebration of LGBTQIA2S+ identity and a call for equal rights. So my first question for the panel is, what does Pride mean to you?
I guess I'll start answering that question. Hi, everybody. I'm Luz. As Ashley introduced me, I use she, they pronouns interchangeably is fine. And so what does pride mean to me? Wow, that's a loaded question, I think. Pride means a lot. As an intersectional brown queer person, it means like a time where I get to be myself, you know, as cringy as it is to see like people with all decked out in rainbow, like for a lot of my life, that was me. I wanted people to know, I wanted people to see how proud I was. Pride just means a time and place where I can be unafraid and be myself unapologetically while also recognizing all the people that came before me that looked like me, who literally put their lives on the line. So I could have what I have now. That's what pride means to me.
Thank you.
For myself, it means about like where we came from, where we're going, to see where we've come from. Something I brought this is part of my pride. something that was sent to me. And this is an article that was released 20 years ago this last March about a show I was doing. And it talked about me being gay in the Wenatchee world and how frightening that was to see it in black and white. And now, 20 years later, to walk down the street and see pride colors up and down Wenatchee Avenue at East Wenatchee, and to thank the Elvis Garcia Foundation for doing that. Fascinating. I love it. I just love it. And there's so many new parts of the whole spectrum, the gender identity and sexuality that is now being explored, where we find out it's not so black and white. I don't understand all of it, but I support it, and I'm excited to learn about it and find out all the new ways that people can express themselves. That, to me, is pride.
Thank you. I feel the same.
I think for me personally, pride has gone ahead and changed over the years. So I remember when I was much younger, maybe something along the age of maybe Luce today, where I was joining my fellow like-minded individuals in my youth, and we were out in Spokane, in Seattle, just celebrating with everybody around the state. Today, I am celebrating that, but in a different way. So today I am trying to pave the way for those younger individuals and helping create the culture that I have seen in Seattle, in Spokane, but bringing that here and helping cultivate that here. And that is my way to go ahead and celebrate Pride and hopefully get the stage set for the next generation here locally.
Thank you.
I want to chime in that my name's Emily. I use they pronouns. If you like me, I use she pronouns if you don't. For me, pride is the opposite of shame. It turns this dirty secret into something that we can celebrate, and we can find joy in our love and our gender transgressions, and holding that those are transgressions that we have now reclaimed in a way that honors our history and honors our ancestors and honors ourselves and the work that we're doing to make the future better.
Hi, yes, my name is Alexa, and I use she, her pronouns. And to reiterate, I think everyone has had wonderful answers, and I think really it's just a time for being able to celebrate and show love and not have to hide who we are, and just be ourselves and be happy with that and love each other. And it's just such a joyous time, and really does in a lot of ways feel like the time when we truly get to just be ourselves and shine and not be afraid or feel like we need to hide.
All right. Well, I will move on to the next question unless someone else wants to jump in. I don't want to cut anyone off. Okay. The next question that I have is, what do the letters LGTBQIA2S mean? We've had a lot of questions about all of those acronyms, and I just wanted to have someone here address that for us.
I'll do that. L is lesbian, so it's lesbian, gay, trans, bisexual, intersex, queer, intersex, asexual, and 2S is for Native American culture, for those who are non-binary in that culture. Yeah, so that's what it stands for.
If I can interject, I wanted to add that Q can stand for queer or questioning. I think a lot of the time we forget, like, if you are questioning, you are part of the community. And then 2S is two-spirit.
Two-spirit,
on that,
and folks, also, if they want to get a more in-depth description of what all those words mean, if they look out on Facebook for either at the YWCA or even I think Luz is doing some classes on just kind of, I call it Gay 101, So learning what all these newfangled letters mean and what gender means and what all these things mean. And the purpose of the classes is really to provide a safe space for people to ask all of those really awkward, kind of embarrassing questions that they really want to know, but they just have no idea how to ask somebody without offending them on accident. So keep an eye out for those classes coming back soon. I think Lou's just had one, is having one soon, something along those lines.
Yeah, you're correct, Dusty. I just had a LGBTQ plus anti-stigma training on the 16th, and I know look for some more in the future through my job at Children's Home Society, and like Dusty said, the YWCA does them, so look forward to them. I've heard they're really great.
Just like a topic, just really quickly. I mean, I think like, you know, like at times, like it's important to engage and deepen our sense of cultural competency and understand for folks what the labels that they feel best represent who they are as a human. But I think the more that we can simply, you know, meet people exactly where they're at, letting them define for themselves what that means, and creating space for people to simply be their complex intersectional selves, and listening to stories, I think the deeper understanding you'll have of all of those terms to sort of build your relationships with folks who use those identity labels to describe their life experience. And like others have said, it's really about gender, it's about sexuality or sexual orientation, and it's about sex and how all of those things intersect. And none of us exist in just our gender and sexuality vacuum as well. And so we're all a bunch of intersecting multi-identity humans. And the more we spend time to get to know each other's stories, how we have come to understand ourselves in this journey in the world, I think the more understanding and acceptance we would all have for how we show up, because none of us, no matter what our identity labels are, fit neatly into any one box. So thanks.
And I would like to go ahead and add, first of all, Ashley, our lead, our co-host, I wanted to go ahead and give you props for, you sound like a professional rolling out all of those identities. But I did want to go ahead and also give props to Matthew, who went ahead and previously mentioned that even though he hasn't interacted with a lot of these people who identify with these identities, it is a great time for us to go ahead and use this time to go ahead and learn, and also allow us the grace to understand that we can't possibly know all these identities or fully understand them. And as long as it's coming from a place of wanting to learn and seeking to understand, I think that's great. So
100%. I would rather hear a question than somebody remain in ignorance.
Thank you. So I was, reading up about this, and I was really kind of surprised when I came across that in this year alone, there have been over 250 I don't even like to say anti, but it's anti-LGBTQ bills introduced to state legislators across the United States. And that's just in the first 6 months of this year. So I thought it was really important to ask you all sorry, now I have to find my question again because I want to make sure I ask it how I wrote it. So hold on, I lost my page. Oh goodness, how many windows do I need open in one meeting? So my question is, what local, state, or national issues affecting the LGBTQIA2S plus communities are particularly on your mind?
Trans girls in sports. Trans girls in sports. As of a couple days ago, and there could be more as of now, there are at least 68 bills in the United States that are either in the process of getting approval or that have already been enacted that are banning trans girls from playing sports at a high school, middle school, elementary school level. This is not professional athletes, this is children. And it's discriminating against children based upon their gender identity, even going so far as to subject them in some of the bills to genital inspections to determine whether or not they can actually play on the team. It is a human rights abuse, and it is appalling. And the thing that we can do about it is to educate ourselves, educate our friends, our families, our coworkers. If you believe in government, call your senators. Share things on social media. Spread the word. If you have the money, donate to organizations like the ACLU that are supporting trans athletes. Uplift trans voices.
And speaking on that note, like this is actually one of the record-breaking years for anti-trans in specific, like attacking bills wise. In particular, there's a lot of bills going out right now to stop gender-affirming treatment for minors. One of them was already passed in Arkansas. That's awful. To not offer that type of medical, gender-affirming anything, whether that be medications, HRT, just counseling in general for those children it's denying them their right to be authentic. So that is on a national level. That's across the states. The Natchez, just fight them. Just do what you can to just get your voice out. Locally, for me personally, what's on my mind is a lot of the school issues, the lack of advocacy and just knowing your rights within the system. Lack of general staff training is a really big issue. These teachers don't know what to do. And if they do know what to do and it's wrong, they're teaching shameful minds that who they are is not okay. So I think that's a great start, is just to get the educated, more educated on current times and making sure that our kids have the correct information that they need accessible to them at all points in time. Yep.
Thank you.
Going along with that, I think there have been, I mean, just in general, to echo what both of them have said, so many laws this year, which is just terrible, but some go so far as to say that a medical provider can withhold care of an individual who identifies as non-heterosexual, non-cisgender, just based on religious beliefs. And also that if someone were to commit a crime, particularly a hate crime, they could get away with it because they could say it's because of their religious beliefs, and then they wouldn't be persecuted under the law. And so I think just all of these are, trying to take away basic human rights, and it's a huge step backwards, it feels like, from where we've been going. And I'm not sure if maybe some people are a little upset about our current administration, and that's their way of trying to maintain some control over what they view wanting their America to look like. But some of these bills have passed already, especially the biggest states are Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas, and there's one other one. But there are also a lot more that are in circuit. And Washington State just denied one of those, that people who are non-heterosexual, non-cisgender cannot be treated differently medically. So yay, Washington.
During my research, one of the things I also noted was that not all of these are new laws, but there are laws still on the books that shocked me, such as over 20, like I think it was like 27 states still allow people to be fired just because of who they are. And so that's like over half the states. I'm sure there's a lot more that I don't know, but that to me was really appalling. And this is just something that's ongoing that hasn't ever been changed.
I think we forget a lot of times in Washington because we have some of the best civil liberties protections in the country. Um, and so we forget a lot of the times, I know I do, that these rules aren't the same in other states. Um, in other states, you can absolutely be fired for being gay or for showing up to work in the wrong clothes. So it's weird, I think, to me to look outside of Washington and remember, oh yeah, there are places where this is a thing still. Um, and just to remember that it's a really uncomfortable place to sit in, just because we are really lucky in Washington.
I think to that regard too, just to kind of like on that topic of like people's ability to show up at work authentically themselves. I mean, think about the pressure of, that's your economic security. For many, we're not independently wealthy. So the ability to create space in your workplaces for everyone is critically important. Not only that, your best ideas, your best products are always created with diverse perspectives in mind, because then they can be created and sold and consumed and provided to the most diverse communities as possible. And so even from the small lens, right, legislation impacts our lives in very profound ways on the institutional level, and it's important that we are focused on that and we don't lose sight of that. But it's also the little things that we can do every day in our own lives to create space for people to live authentically who they are without feeling fear, right? That fear is so much more intensified when you know that you can be fired, and for no other reason than showing up authentically yourself to work. But even in a space in a state that we experience a lot more protection, there's still stigma. And I guarantee you, probably most of these panelists have thought about how they're showing up to work the first day of a new job. How authentic can I be? How do I show up to an interview? It just because it's safer legislatively doesn't mean it's always safer when the rubber hits the road and we walk through the door. So for allies out there, folks, the more that you can do to create safe spaces in your workplace, the more you're going to reduce the stress of your colleagues around you.
Yeah, because all humans deserve the right to show up to work and be who they are. Sorry, Matthew.
No, that's fine. You were running the show. I'm just a facilities guy.
No, I am providing space.
But just what I find a little horrifying in this day and age, which I know sounds like it ages me way too much than it should, but I find that there's on some social media platforms, there are some younger people that are taking it for granted. Like they're saying, well, I don't know why we have pride. I don't know why we voted on if I could get married. I mean, that's why I get to wear this. Washington State did it before the nationally, that the anniversary is 6 years ago on the 25th, that same-sex couples could be married. And we voted on that. And in 1967, there were still, I think, 13 states that was legal for interracial people to be married. I mean, it's so close, all these really so close in history when these things have happened, and to see it kind of be like taken for granted, I find that really frightening. On top of it, something Ashley had said made me think of it and it connected better, but I wanted to get my thought out, and I apologize for not connecting that properly.
No worries. We did have a couple of questions from some viewers that I want to make sure that we address. First off, I'm going to ask someone to define the CIS, because I know Alexa had said cisgender, and I just want someone to explain that for anyone who's watching and doesn't know.
I can go ahead and kind of jump in. So I'll start with heterosexual. So heterosexual is a person who identifies, I always use examples. So let's say I identify as female and I am only attracted to people who are identified as male. I'm heterosexual, also known as straight. That That's a slang term. Now for cisgendered, and anybody can chime in if they're like, oh, you didn't explain that too well. It is a person whose gender identity aligns with their sex assigned at birth. So if I was assigned sex at birth, female, and I identified, my gender identity was female, I am cisgendered. If I find examples help the most, hopefully that answered their question. Anybody can jump in.
It's also really important to note that cisgender is not in any way, shape, or form a slur. It is literally just a descriptor. It says nothing about anybody's character. It is literally just a descriptor. I've gotten into some pretty feisty Facebook arguments with folks who think that cisgender is somehow this huge slur and it's an insult. It's like calling you blonde. It literally, that's it. You're blonde, you're cisgender, that's it.
Thanks. I love the examples. Another question, we're going to go back to Emily on the question on trans sports, and they wanted to know if there's an unfair advantage at play.
No, there is not. This is a thing I care a lot about. So yes, there are biological differences between biological males and females. However, children, athletic children, non-athletic children, the little fat ones like me, you know, all kids are pretty much the same. Before puberty, they're absolutely the same. After puberty, yeah, the boys might get taller, but that doesn't really impact anything. You can have, and following Luce's example, I'm going to use some examples. If you have a basketball team and one of the kids on the basketball team is 5 feet tall and one of them is 6 feet tall and they're both girls, you're not going to kick off the 6 foot tall girl because she has an unfair advantage because she's taller than the other girls. You know, you're going to like praise her for her physical advantage that enables her to play her sport well. The 5 foot tall girl's not freaking out because she can't play. She gets to play too, and she probably has her own strengths. So it has been proven by studies over and over again that unless you are at an Olympic or professional level of sports, there's no difference. There is no significant difference from a scientific, data-driven perspective between boys and girls' athletic ability. Full stop.
And I'd like to add as well that usually, most, if not always, but usually children at that age who identify as either transgender or non-binary are taking some sort of puberty blocker. And so that suppresses specifically for those assigned male at birth, that suppresses their testosterone. That's going to suppress the further development of those more, typically male features. And so I think that even further reduces any potential differences there. And so really it's not about ability, it's about discriminating and saying you're different and so you can't play with us, which is just so hard for kids.
Yeah, and children's sports, it's important to also recognize that hopefully in your family, children's sports are not about becoming the absolute best soccer player in the entire world. They're about having fun with your friends. They're about building a team, building teamwork skills, building community. And if we're kicking off members of the team who identify as the right gender to play girls soccer because someone's parent doesn't agree with the way that they are as a person, that's completely out of line. There's not a biological difference in their playing abilities. Like Alexa said, some trans kids are on puberty blockers. It's just not an issue. The issue is discrimination and prejudice. You have this scary storybook villain of like, oh, the big scary trans woman out to like beat out all our cute little girls on the soccer team. That's bullshit. It's just bullshit. And if you're having a difficult time believing me, read the facts for yourself.
I also think that mostly it's just a lack of education in terms of trans people, in particular how HRT works. So, because I feel like it's not usually, I mean, like, okay, shouldn't say not usually. It's the people who are complaining about trans people playing sports, they're not talking about the sixth graders on the soccer team. They're talking about high school kids or collegiate level athletes, because that's where they think their advantages are. That's where the issue is. But it's just a lack of understanding and basic education. You can look up on Google. You can look it up. There are so many resources on lots of different websites. I think every person here has a resource for you if you want some education on that. But I think just a lack of understanding and taking the time to understand that like HRT does things to the body, whether you're trans feminine or trans masculine, it does those things. So these non-binary / trans kids, people, adults even, there's no advantage there. It's your body is changing. So if you're complaining about the height, like Emily said, then get over the hype. But I think it really just comes from a lack of understanding of how HRT works in the body, in the system. So lack of education. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, for the folks that might not know what HRT is, Lincoln, can you say what that is?
It's hormone replacement therapy, estrogen for trans feminine people, and testosterone for trans masculine people, or non-binary can go either way, depending on who you identify as and how you want to be presented and how you feel in yourself. HRT is hormone replacement therapy.
I want to go back and mention that the data I was referencing regarding there being no real significant difference between children between 5 and 18 playing sports on boys teams or girls teams, these are cis kids. These are not kids on HRT. The data that I'm referencing, that I know about, that I learned about in my psychology of gender class a couple years ago. These are little boys and little girls, and the girls and the boys are tying in races. It's not even about hormones. It's about misinformation.
Oh, sorry, I was having trouble with my mute button. Well, I was just going to add that, no one out there is transitioning so that they can be the best athlete. Like, that's not why you do it.
To add evidence to that statement, Ashley, it is hard on your body. You are going through puberty either all over again or first time and then will again potentially, because you're taking these hormones that your body isn't used to. And so it is uncomfortable, potentially even painful, and of course rewarding for these individuals, but it's not something that people do just because for personal gain. That would be like, saying that you want to, I don't know, have like plastic surgery when you didn't really want to have it. So, yeah.
Yeah, nobody relives middle school for funsies.
Thank you. So my next question has to do with pronouns, because I feel like there's more, like, I don't know if suddenly or just I suddenly became aware that it's more of like email signatures, or here in this forum, it's becoming more of a thing where we talk about pronouns. So why are pronouns so important, and why is getting them right so important, I guess?
For me personally, when it comes to introducing myself or making myself more available to anyone, it is my way to go ahead and introduce myself, and also asking them how they want to go ahead and be acknowledged, if you will. There will be individuals who may not need that, but it is coming from a place where we are seeking to give them a space to feel welcome, to be included, whatever identity they may go ahead and may align to themselves. So I think that is a great place to start. And at least when, like you mentioned, Ashley, adding in that opportunity for others to introduce themselves, it is a great way to go ahead and be inclusive of them, especially in such a small community like we live in here in North Central Washington, where there's still a lot of folks that may fear coming out or engaging. This is when I am introducing myself with my pronouns, it opens, I am hoping that they are seeing as me being an individual that they can go ahead and confide in or be open with. And it's just one more way to go ahead and provide an open space.
I was going to say, thanks, Donnie, for saying that. I also think the importance of pronouns aligns back to, we need to stop assuming as a culture, as a society, that when we see a person, they would instantly use she pronouns or he pronouns. So I think that is why pronouns have become such a huge deal all of a sudden, was so we could stop assuming people's genders. Like, I don't think that people, when they look at me, they assume I use she, they. Maybe because they didn't even know they was an option, but it's just about that. It's creating a space where people don't assume, because we don't know what people are walking into or who they are. Is this a trans person that can transition, and just getting their pronouns right is what makes their day. You know, frankly, getting pronouns right is so important because it saves lives. When, especially youth, you use their correct pronoun, they feel validated. And so then that brings up the question of, how do we do that? How do we even introduce pronouns into the conversation? And it is by small introductions, like, hey, my name's Luce, I use she, they pronouns. Would you mind introducing yourself? And then they know you are a safe person. You are a safe space. You understand. You want me to identify myself, and you're going to respect, hopefully, my pronouns and the way that I choose to identify. So that's why they're so important, not just to youth. I mean, youth, obviously, but also just to all humans when you use the correct pronoun, because it validates them.
So I do have a follow-up question on the plural pronouns, because can you still use you as a pronoun when it's plural, or is there a way to pluralize you? I know in the South it's y'all, so that like fixes the problem, but up here in Washington we don't say that usually, and so I've had questions. I've heard people talk about it and ask, what do you say? Is you okay for a plural?
So are you asking kind of, what do you say instead of something like you guys?
Or just like when you're talking to someone who identifies with a plural pronoun, you is singular, so can you still use you when you're talking to them?
Yes.
Yeah, the idea of the they pronoun, because I've recently, within the last 6 or 8 months, started going by they in friendly circles. The idea of it is not to, I contain multitudes, like I'm multiple people now. No. It's an easier way to create a gender neutral pronoun. Like Leslie Feinberg, a famous trans author, used he, her, his, HI, which is sort of an early example of neopronouns, which are pronouns that people create that they identify with, like Faye, Faye's self. And those pronouns can be brand new for a lot of people. Using they is something that we already have some linguistic familiarity with. I see a person across the street, I don't know their name. That's a pretty normal linguistic thing. And so at least for me, using they pronouns is, I want to be identified more gender neutral, and I don't want to have to explain every single time I introduce my pronouns the exact intricacies of how to use that, because we already know the conjugations of they. That makes life easier.
Thank you. I thought this was the answer, but because I've heard this conversation about, I wanted to address it here just because I thought the answer was you is still okay, but wanted to make sure that you guys had a chance, or you all had a chance to sorry. I'm going to make mistakes. So this leads to my next question.
It is okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to learn from them.
So this leads to my next
Welcome.
question. If I'm unsure of the pronoun, what do I do?
Ask. If you don't know, you can always go with a they, or just you can avoid using pronouns altogether. People have names, you can use their name. But a great way, if you don't know if their gender expression does not, if you don't know if their gender expression in particular aligns with how they identify, you can just be like, if you don't know who that person is, and be like, hi, I'm Lincoln. Like Luz was stating earlier, which is a great example, you know, hi, I'm Lincoln. I use he, him pronouns. What is your name and what are your pronouns? Or how do you identify? Or what's up, you know? Because if you don't know their pronouns and you offer yours, you are like Luz stated earlier, it does open up a safe space. And, you know, for that inclusion to be like, oh, if I don't use what people would assume my pronouns are, it's giving me an opportunity to state them so that there's no confusion later on. And if you're embarrassed to ask, which is totally fine, just avoid pronouns. Use their name. Hey, Ashley. How you doing, Ashley? Hey, Ashley, could you hand me that thing over there? It's you don't have to use pronouns at all if you really don't want to. Also, they, them has been used since, like Emily was saying, it's there. Shakespeare used they. Shakespeare all the time, constantly. I've read a lot of Shakespeare. Every single time it's they. It's there. But yeah, so just ask. If you don't want to ask, you don't have to.
I want to
And we
piggyback.
do, excuse me, we do it unconsciously too, as an example, Ashley, that you know, somebody calls in the office. Well, who was it? I don't know. Well, what did they have to say? You know, no, I mean, it's an unconscious thing, and it is so fast that we don't think about it. And yet, when it becomes a label to a person, not a label, I don't like to use that, but as an identifier, there we are. I can get it right sometimes. When it's an identifier, somehow that makes people freeze up, and yet we've done it unconsciously our entire lives.
Well, I really appreciate this group so far because you've made it a really safe place for me to make mistakes.
Well, and I think we all do. And I still say you guys all the time. I'm from Southern California, and it's like you say it even if you're talking to all people who identify as females. And so the best thing to do is just say, oops, y'all, or folks is something that's often used. And you know, we all make mistakes, and just have to sometimes be vulnerable and be willing to learn from it.
Another really quick pro tip, since we're all here in a space of wanting to learn, just when you're like talking about pronouns in general too, and you've noticed here today, like we didn't say preferred, right? It's just our pronouns, and preferred sort of implies that there's something that's more right than what we're, the way in which we're asking to be recognized. And so just drop the preferred, say the pronouns, you're good to go.
I had the opportunity to speak to a person today who I think is awesome. They also identify as politically conservative. And so we had the opportunity for a little bit of education today. She's great. Her name's Karen. And so we had the opportunity of, it's not rude to ask. You're not being insulting by asking. You're being more insulting by assuming wrong. I used the example with her of, what if I was being mean to you and I decided to call you he? You know, that's Karen over there. He's getting his groceries like the big old man bro dude that he is. And Karen goes, yeah, no, that's offensive. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So
More great examples. Thank you. I love the examples. It really paints a better picture than just answering the question, I guess. So I want to ask, what do you want the community to know about LGBTQIA2S plus people?
We're everywhere, whether you know it or not. We exist in every space. We are in every place. We are where there's 1 million people, and we are where there's 7. We exist everywhere, and we're so different looking. Like, look at us all, just this panel. We are so diverse, intersectional human beings. And together we are quite powerful. Yeah. I guess that's it. I don't know if that was like a call, like everybody, come on. But yeah, we're everywhere. We exist everywhere, and create spaces that are welcoming and inviting.
We have not always been discriminated against. We have not always been hated. Gay people, trans people, intersex people, other people on the spectrum have been celebrated and viewed as divine for centuries, especially in Indigenous cultures. The fact that this history has been hidden from us for so long is a part of our cis heteropatriarchal colonial society that has obscured these things from view. But we have always been here, and we are always gonna be here, just like Lou said. And we can find love and community for ourselves because it has always been with us.
If you're not paying my bills, your opinion does not matter. I mean, I was saying that at Miss Spradlin, but just for the Miss Spradlin, excuse me. I apologize. That they is something I am still learning about and addressing properly myself. It is my education and my slow learning process. I do apologize. But if a person has an opinion of me that they don't like, my life, my husband, whatever, unless they're paying my bills, I don't care.
For the community, mostly that the things that you say, they stay. And people will not forget that, whether they be your kids or your neighbors or your teachers or your doctors or your therapists. You saying hurtful things in front of especially impressionable minds, those things stay. They stay for a very long time. And so if you are not willing to do the work, which you can do, whether you need help with it is fine. If you're embarrassed to ask out, send an anonymous post, write a letter. I don't know. But there are options to educate yourself so that the people in your life have someone who is a positive influence and is a person that they can trust. But look at us. We're good people. And I love. I'm here for it. So absolutely. So if you want educational resources, we have them. Everyone has them. Just do a Google search. Educating yourself is the first step to educating others and to creating more inclusive space for everybody of all identities and all sexual orientations. So that's where I would start.
I would go ahead and also include that every one of these individuals on today's panel, there is nobody here that has a gay agenda. We are not after anything special. Like Matthew went ahead and previously mentioned, he is newly married. That is not something new in this nation. Hetero individuals, that has been a right for, I'm sure, as long as we can remember. So we are only trying to go ahead and get those rights that everybody else has had. We are trying to make sure that there is representation. So if you are being told otherwise, then I strongly would suggest to reach out to one of these many organizations or even do the research out there on your own. We are just looking to go ahead and manage up our LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters. And then through that work, we are hoping that we will be able to go ahead and provide individuals from hurting themselves when it comes down to it. Or if they happen to do go ahead and come out and their family is not supportive, we want to go ahead and have a space for them somewhere where they will be feel welcome, and they don't have to go ahead and resort to anything that would not be beneficial to their health.
And I think, we all just want love. That's, what we as human beings, it's a basic need. And that's, I think, just as much true for all of us in the community. And, sort of tying in what Luz and Lincoln said, we are everywhere and impressionable minds hear everything. So if you are out and about with people and someone says something that could be perceived as negative toward an individual who identifies as part of the LGBTQIA2S plus community, then say something, because you don't know who's around and hearing it and being hurt by what is being said. And you just one person can make such a difference in someone's lives. And and we love you and we want you to love us, and then that's it.
I think at our core, like every human just wants to be recognized for who they are, right? And it's not like we, necessarily walk around like in a NASCAR suit with all of these logo labels all over us, right? And even if we did, what everyone, at some point we all would be having some of the similar labels on our bodies, like representing who we are. And what underneath all of it is a human, someone who, has the desire to be respected, appreciated, loved in this world. And the more that I think that we can provide that to one another, engaging in conversations across difference, seeking to understand more than to be understood, we're going to be creating a much safer community for everyone.
Thank you. I also think that we have this in common. We're humans. We are trying to go to work, mow our lawns, take care of our families, and love our families, love each other, love our neighbors, and go grocery shopping and do the things that humans do. And so that is common ground that we all share. And I think that kind of that's the bottom line.
I do dig the NASCAR idea now that it's been mentioned. I think that I might actually take it.
Before we kind of get too far into wrapping up, I would like to acknowledge that Wenatchee Pride, you have an event. Is it this Friday? Can Lincoln or someone share with us what is happening this week or the next week and a half?
yeah. Okay, so we've been trying to stay within limits with COVID. Even though people are being vaccinated, we want to wait till vaccination rates are way higher before we start pushing for more public events. But it's still Pride Month, and we want to be excited about it because we're celebrating. As of right now, Friday, we're doing a Bowl with Pride. Eastmont Lanes over in East Wenatchee has donated their space and their time with us. There's our lanes are filled up, but you can still come. We got drinks, and there's the arcade that is so fun, even for adults. I promise. It's great. There's the arcade. There's drinks. There's the raffle. We have so many great raffle prizes that have been donated by local businesses and residential businesses. And it's been a really great community burst of excitement. We're really excited about it. So that's Friday, starts at 6 to 8. Please show up and support Pride. It's gonna be great. Yeah.
Thank you. Before I close us out, because we only have a few minutes left, I want to just open it up for any last words anyone wanted to share or say. And this is kind of a free for all. If there's something really important that you think that the community or viewers should know, here's your chance.
The first Pride was a riot.
Go ahead, Ashley.
I was just going to say the Wenatchee Pride, wenatcheepride.org, the resources tab has an incredible depth of resources. So in that vein of, where do you go for some guidance as a parent or around spirituality or just transgender issues in general, or what are some national resources or Washington state resources? It's a really great starting place to help you dive in and feel a little bit more connected and answer some of the questions that you may have.
The first Pride was a riot started by Black trans women who were angry and who threw bricks at cops. Get them. Not in like any violent sort of way. Just get them.
I was going to say, as Pride Month comes to an end and we all kind of emanate with the beauties of Pride, the sadness of Pride, the joys of Pride, I wanted to say, Pride is every month. Acknowledging that LGBTQ plus people exist is every month. Our history doesn't stop existing when June is over. And just education around that history and around the community, whether you're in the community or outside the community, continue educating, I wish I could just put everything like education wise, but really it's just a Google search, like history of Stonewall, history of marriage equality in the United States. It's just continue educating and happy Pride, but also remembering that Pride doesn't stop just because June's over.
I will ask that if you have any links or anything that you would like the museum to share on our website, you can, all of you panelists can email me afterwards, and we'll share them if there are, some really important ones we should make sure that we have available.
Thank you so much for putting this together too. I mean, this is something that, again, growing up here, I never thought I'd see. I never thought I'd see a pride flag in Wally's, hanging in Wally's window. My goodness, I'd be to see this. So thank you for doing it, and thank you for helping to educate farther, because I'm still learning myself.
Thank you. Well, it looks like we're almost to 8 o'clock. So I'm going to wrap us up here. And I want to thank everyone for joining us for the Social Justice Community Forum series. If you have a topic you'd like us to add to our series on social justice, please send us your suggestions through the comments and chats, or you can email us at info@wvmcc.org. That's info@wvmcc.org. And thank you again to all the panelists for participating today. We hope you all will be able to join us again as we continue this conversation. I'm sure we didn't cover everything on this topic, so we might have a follow-up forum in the future where we can hear from some more voices and hear again from some of the panelists we've had tonight. I'd like to welcome everyone to visit the museum. We're open Tuesday through Sundays for summer Sundays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we do have a hybrid event tomorrow night in our new community space at 6 p.m. So you can join us in person or join us again on Zoom and live streaming for an event with Our Valley, Our Future, for a community question and answer session about moving into the future. And that panel will discuss how businesses and organizations today are innovating, building resiliency, and planning for the future, and what the region could potentially look like in 20 to 30 years. You can find out more information at our website, wenatcheevalleymuseum.org. That is also where you can find the resources from the social justice series that we'll post within the next week or so. Again, that's wenatcheevalleymuseum.org. And I want to just remind everyone to go to Eastmont Lanes on Friday night to celebrate Pride with Wenatchee Pride. Thank you again, everyone, for joining me. Thank you, Wilma, for translating. She came on board way last minute, and that was really important to us that we had that option available to viewers. So good night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me.